Hello and welcome back. Well, if the tension has been building for 16 books in the Iliad, and you've been waiting for Achilles to return to battle, Book 16 is what sets that into motion, and in Book 18, Achilles will return to battle. Book 18 is important for us, in that Achilles reacts. He feels that his honor has been slighted, his questioning has led to the death of his friend, and he returns to his old Book 1 self. He screams and scares everyone off. And it's at this point that his mother goes and gets new weapons for him. Thetis approaches Hephaestus for new armor for Achilles. And we get this very, very lengthy detail of the arms, but especially the shield. What do they depict, and what does this mean? That'll be the subject of our discussion this week. But for right now, let's turn to what Achilles does with his armor. In Book 19, he will receive his armor from his mother, and he will reconcile with Agamemnon. And he states explicitly that he chooses a short and glorious life. It's later, in Book 21, that he'll actually start using the weapons in the way in which they were intended. And this is where Achilles gets his Aristeia, his moment of excellence. In Book 21, Achilles will go on a killing spree that's unrivaled in any other part of the book. He'll kill Trojans left and right. He'll kill Trojans as they ask for mercy. At one point, Achilles will actually get into a struggle with a river and fight it. That's how intense his Aristeia is. But you know what you've been waiting for, the main event, Book 22. And it's in Book 22 that Achilles and Hector finally square off. And this doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, especially for those of you who are familiar with the movie Troy. Hector at first runs around Troy 3 times trying to escape Achilles. He's actually likened to a man running in his dreams. If you'll turn to page 211 in the Essential Homer, running in a dream, you can't catch up, and you can't get away. And this describes an experience that maybe many of you have had in your dreams as you feel like you're running towards something but don't seem to be moving at all. And he's actually tricked into stopping his flight by Athena. Athena comes to him disguised as his brother and tricks him into turning and facing Achilles as if he can win this conflict. It doesn't go bravely for Hector here either. He begs that Achilles not mutilate his body after he's dead. And we know why he's afraid of this. He's afraid of this because the ancients believed that the way your body looked after you died was the way it would look forever. Of course, Achilles will not make such a promise. In fact, he threatens to eat the skin off Hector's body. He will kill Hector, and he will strip his armor off of him, and his soldiers will mutilate Hector's body, and in a horrible, horrible way. A gleam in the air as Achilles poised his spear with murderous aim at Hector, eyes boring into the beautiful skin, searching for the weak spot. Hector's body was encased in the glowing bronze armor he had stripped from the fallen Patroclus, and where the collarbones joined at the neck, the gullet offered swift and certain death. It was there Achilles drove his spear through his Hector charge. The heavy bronze apex pierced his soft neck, but did not slit the windpipe, so that Hector could still speak, and he fell back in the dust. It's at this point that Book 22 repeats some of the elements from Book 16. In Book 16, as Patroclus is dying, we learn about the Greeks' fear of having their corpse mutilated, but we also learn about the prophecy of the dying. It's in Book 22 that Hector will make a prophecy to Achilles as he's dying. And this is what he said: "But the gods will not forgive this, and I will have my vengeance on that day when Paris and Apollo destroy you in the long shadow of Troy's western gate." Paris and Apollo. This is what Hector says to Achilles. And it certainly seems that if our previous lesson on the prophecy of the dying is any guide, this will indeed come true. And it will be Paris, of all people, who will kill Achilles. So Achilles mutilates Hector's body and drags it around the city behind his chariot. And you can imagine in the rocky soil of Asia Minor, this would be a pretty gruesome sight. Here on this vase, we actually see Hector being dragged right in front of his parents, as if Achilles is flaunting it in front of them. It's in Book 24 that the Iliad starts doing things that it hasn't done for a few books. And this is where we see the human side of our characters again, more than just how they approach their pride or their shame. In Book 24, is where Achilles and Priam meet. And the idea that I would present to you for book 24 is that this is the Iliad as tragedy. And here's why. In the first half of the Iliad, the book is concerned with the rising action surrounding Achilles' return to battle, and it would seem that every choice that he makes leads to tragic consequences. With their dying breaths, both Patroclus and Hector predict painful deaths for Hector and Achilles, and one of these comes true right away. And in the prophecy, the first man is an indicator. The second one will also come true. Also, Priam has to face the killer of his son and pay to have his son's body returned. Priam sneaks into the camp of the Greeks and sneaks into the tent of Achilles and speaks directly to him about Hector. And this is what he has to say. My Hector, it is for him that I have come to the Greek ships, to get him back from you. I've brought a fortune in ransom. Respect the gods, Achilles. Think of your own father and pity me. I am more pitiable. I have borne what no man who has walked this earth has ever yet borne. I have kissed the hand of the man who killed my son. And indeed, this is true. Priam has had to do and see horrible things in the course of this war. And having to beg for his son's body back is not the last of these horrible things. Achilles agrees on an 11-day truce. And this is what happened. They return Hector's body to Troy. And here we get a long depiction of the funeral of Hector. This is an odd ending for a Trojan in a Greek epic in that he goes out in style. Why does this happen in a Greek epic? Homer doesn't really seem to take sides here. In fact, the last lines of this epic have to do with Hector. Let's turn to the funeral speeches of Andromache, Hecuba, and Helen first. In Hector's funeral, 3 women speak over his body. The first of these is Andromache, his wife, and she's quite pessimistic about her prospects. She knows things are not going to go well for her now that Hector is dead. Secondly, Hecuba, his mother, talks of Achilles' cruelty and the triumph of the love of the gods for Hector. And finally, Helen, and it's strange because this is the same Helen from books 3 and 6, speaks up and talks about Hector and talks about how well he has treated her over the course of the war. And this is fascinating in that we hear women's perspectives in a way that we haven't much else in this epic. And perhaps you were surprised by the ending of the Iliad, and that was the funeral of Hector, breaker of horses. Perhaps you thought you were going to hear about the death of Achilles. Perhaps you thought you were going to hear about the sack of Troy. But no, that's another epic. And we'll learn about those things when we read the Odyssey and the Aeneid later in this course. Also, you probably thought that the Iliad took place over a long period of time. But in fact, here's how it goes. Book 1 lasts 20 days, books 2 through 7 last 2 days, books 8 through 10 last 1 day, books 11 through 18 only take place over the course of 1 day, books 19 through 22, this is where Achilles gets his Aristeia, this takes place over 1 day, and finally books 23 and 24, these are the 2 funerals, that of Patroclus and that of Hector, take place over 22 days. You see the Greeks mourn their dead in high style. I look forward to reading your posts in the discussion about Achilles' shield and its possible meaning, and look forward to reading the Odyssey with you next week.